From a handshake deal on 700,000 acres to bodies quietly disappearing at a place they call the train station.
You take that trash to the train station.
The Dutton Ranch only works because the law never looks too hard at it. John Dutton built an empire on land his family bled for, and he'd tell you he earned every acre of it. The truth is a little messier than that. So today we're asking one question, and we're answering it the only honest way there is, level by level against the real world. Could John Dutton actually survive real Montana law? Or would the biggest ranch in the state be gone, broken up, and sold off inside a single year? Here's the thing nobody on that ranch wants to say out loud. The whole operation runs on one assumption, that the rules either don't apply to the Duttons, or that nobody with a badge and a budget ever decides to enforce them. Pull that assumption out, and you find out fast which parts of the empire were load-bearing and which were just bluff. We're going 6 levels deep. The land, the brand, the train station, Beth's war with the corporation, Jamie wearing 2 hats at once, and the land deal that the whole show was secretly always about. Each round, I'll show you how the fiction plays it, how the real system actually works, and then I'll call a winner. Hit subscribe before we start, because I'm planning to run the whole universe through this. 1883, 1923, every spin-off. And you're going to want to be here when we put the train station up against real forensics. Let's get to it. Start with the dirt, because everything else stands on it. The Yellowstone is one of the biggest ranches in the state, butted right up against the national park. In the show, that land is power. It's the thing men kill for and the thing the family will never, ever sell. And here's what almost nobody watching realizes. The show's economics are not exaggerated, they're real. Painfully real. Montana pasture land in 2025 averaged somewhere around $900 an acre. Run that against a spread the size of the Dutton Ranch, and you get a number with a lot of zeros, a fortune on paper. But it's the wrong kind of fortune, because you can't eat an acre, and you can't make payroll with a view.
How are you gonna help it?
We're gonna mark a little territory, grandson.
That land generates almost nothing in cash compared to what it's worth, and that gap is the whole problem. Now, Montana actually cuts the rancher a break here. Working ag land gets taxed on what it produces, not on what it'd sell for, so the yearly tax bill is smaller than that giant valuation would suggest. But that mercy only lasts as long as the land stays exactly what it is. The second it changes hands, or someone dies, or a developer waves a market price offer at it, the real number shows up. And that's the number that breaks families. That's the trap the show keeps circling without ever quite naming. The Duttons are land-rich and cash-poor, and that's not a writer's invention. That is the actual condition of nearly every legacy ranching family in the American West. The asset is enormous. The income is thin. And the day the land has to move, the bill comes due all at once. So how does the real John Dutton hold on? Honestly, he probably reaches for the same tool the real ranchers use, a conservation easement. You give up the right to ever develop the land, you lock it as ranch land forever, and in exchange the tax pressure eases. It's not a magic fix, it's permanent. It ties your hands, and it doesn't save everyone. But it's the most realistic financial move available to him, and the show barely touches it. Winner of round 1, reality, but the show gets a tip of the hat. The economics are dead accurate. The Duttons survive this level, but only barely, and only by giving up the one thing John hates most: control. Now we get to the part of the show fans love and the part the law hates most. You sign on to the bunkhouse, you take the brand, the Y burned into your chest, and from then on you belong to the ranch. In the world of the show, it's loyalty, it's family, it's a man being given a second chance he didn't deserve. It's the single most iconic thing on the whole ranch. In the real world, it's a felony, several of them stacked. Burning a permanent mark into a human being is aggravated assault, full stop. The fact that the man agreed to it doesn't save you, and here's the part most people get wrong. The law on forced labor is clear that something can start out voluntary and become involuntary the second the person wants to leave and can't. And what is the brand, really? It's a mark that says you can never work anywhere else, never start over, never walk into another town as a clean man. That's not a tattoo. That's a chain you can see from across a room. Pile on the bunkhouse rule that branded men can't leave, and a real prosecutor starts looking hard at involuntary servitude, forced labor, held in place by what you can't undo. That's not a county misdemeanor. That's the kind of thing that brings in the federal government. I'll say it plainly. Rip Wheeler is the most loyal man on that ranch, and the brand on his chest is the best evidence the prosecution would ever need. The thing the show frames as belonging would, in reality, be the thread you pull to unravel the entire operation, because every branded hand is a walking witness. Winner, reality, and it's not close. The brand is the empire's biggest legal liability dressed up as its proudest tradition. And this is the one you came for. The train station. Not a building, a stretch of ground at the bottom of a ravine, sitting right where county lines and jurisdictions blur into nothing. The Duttons' problems get driven out there and they simply stop existing. No body, no case, no questions. In the show, it's the perfect crime, repeated for 100 years. So let's ask the real question. Would it actually work? The premise is built on something real. There genuinely are places in the rural West where it's unclear who has authority, where a county sheriff, the state, and federal land agencies all have a claim, and none of them have a clear one. A confused jurisdiction is a real thing. The Duttons aren't wrong that it exists. But here's what the show quietly skips. Jurisdiction decides who investigates. It does not make a body disappear. And this is where reality gets closer to the fiction than you'd expect, then snaps away hard. Closer, because cold cases are real and clearance rates for homicides are nowhere near 100%. A body in deep, remote country, never reported, no one looking, genuinely can stay lost for years. The Duttons aren't fantasizing about that part, but it snaps away hard for one reason: volume. A single disappearance is a cold case. A century of them, all connected to one family, all on or near one ranch. That's not a cold case anymore. That's a pattern, and patterns are exactly what a real investigation lives on. Every person who vanishes near the Dutton land is one more line on a map, and you do not need a body to build a conspiracy case. You need the pattern, the witnesses, and one person who decides to talk. Winner, this one's closer than you'd think, and that's why it's the scariest level. The single act might survive. The habit never could. The train station doesn't get the Duttons caught for one killing. It gets them caught for all of them at once. Let's change weapons, set down the branding iron, and pick up the thing that scares the Duttons more than any gun: a corporation with lawyers and an unlimited budget. Beth Dutton is the family's edge here, and I'll say it. She's the smartest, most dangerous person on the show, and it isn't close. She walks into a room with a corporate raider and walks out having gutted him, and we cheer every time. The way she fights market equities is the most satisfying thing the show does. But here's the thing about Beth's style. It works on television precisely because it would be illegal in real life. The moves that make her a legend, the leveraged threats, the way she uses inside knowledge to blow up a deal at the exact right second, the personal destruction aimed at specific people. A lot of that lives right on the line where aggressive business turns into market manipulation, insider trading, and coercion. Not every play she makes is a prosecutable crime, but the way she operates would put her and her whole firm under the kind of regulatory microscope and civil liability that no rancher with a rifle ever has to worry about. In the real world, the corporation she's fighting doesn't need to beat her in a meeting. They need to keep a transcript, hand it to a regulator, and let the paperwork do the work. That's the brutal irony of round 4. The Duttons can survive men. They cannot survive process. Beth is a hurricane in a room full of people. She is far more exposed in a room full of documents. Winner, reality, but Beth makes them pay for it. She's the only Dutton who actually understands the enemy, and that's exactly why she's the one playing closest to the legal edge. Now, the one that should have ended everything. Jamie Dutton is the family lawyer. Then he's the county attorney. Then he's the attorney general of the state. And the whole time, he is supposed to be enforcing the law against the exact family whose dirty work he's been cleaning up his entire life. I've never had much use for Jamie. He's a coward in a good suit, and the show mostly agrees with me. But forget how you feel about him for a second and look at the legal machine he represents, because this is the level where the Empire is most naked. A prosecutor cannot handle matters tangled up with his own family's interests. That's not a gray area. That's the most basic conflict of interest there is, and it's the kind of thing that gets specific cases thrown out, ends careers, and opens every matter he touched to challenge. Every favor Jamie ever did for the ranch, every problem he made quietly go away while wearing a government badge. In the real world, each one of those becomes a case somebody can fight, reverse, or drag him in front of a disciplinary board over. And the moment anyone starts pulling, it doesn't just take down Jamie, it puts a question mark over everything the family ever ran through him. That's the part the show treats as palace intrigue and reality treats as a loaded gun. Jamie isn't just a weak man the family keeps around. He is, on paper, the single biggest piece of evidence that the Dutton Empire and the justice system in that county were the same thing wearing two faces. Winner. Reality. In a landslide. Jamie was always going to be the crack in the foundation, because you cannot put your own enforcement inside the government and expect the government to survive contact with you. And here's where the whole thing was always heading. Strip away the family drama, and every season of this show is really about one fight: who finally gets the land. Developers want it for an airport and a city. The reservation has a deep and rightful historical claim to it. The state wants the tax base, and the Duttons want to hold it the way they've held it for 100 years by sheer will. This is the level where real law stops being the Duttons' enemy and becomes everyone's weapon at once, because the modern fight over that land isn't won with a branding iron or a body in a ravine. It's fought with eminent domain, the government's power to take private land for public use, the kind of thing that gets litigated for years and isn't guaranteed to anyone. It's fought with tribal land claims that carry the weight of treaty and history behind them. It's fought in courtrooms and at hearings, and with the kind of patient legal pressure that John Dutton has spent his whole life refusing to even acknowledge. And that's the trap the Empire can't fight its way out of. Every tool John is good at, intimidation, loyalty, violence, the long memory of an old family, is useless here. The land deal is decided by exactly the systems the Duttons spent a century routing around. They never built the one thing that would actually save them at the end. They never learned to win on paper. Winner, reality, and this is the knockout. Because every other level was the Duttons surviving a single law. This level is every system in America arriving at the same time for the same dirt, and the family discovering that being feared is worthless when the other side simply files the right document. So could the Dutton Ranch survive real Montana law? Here's my verdict, and I've thought about this one. For about a year, maybe. The land economics are real and survivable. A single act at the train station might never get solved. But stretch it out, and the answer is no. Not a chance. The brand is a federal case waiting to be opened. Jamie is a conflict of interest that poisons a decade of cases the second anyone looks. The train station isn't one cold case. It's a pattern with 100 entries. And the final land fight is decided by the one weapon the Duttons never learned to hold. The Empire doesn't fall to a better gunfighter. It falls to a filing cabinet. And the most Yellowstone thing about all of it is that John Dutton would rather lose the whole ranch the old way than save it the new way. That's the tragedy the show is actually about underneath all the violence. A family that built something real on a foundation that the modern world made illegal, and a patriarch too proud to learn the only language that could have kept it. So tell me below, which Dutton, if any, actually walks away clean when the real law shows up? I've got my pick. I want to hear yours because half of you are about to defend Beth, and I am ready for it. And if you want to see what happens when we put the train station up against real forensic science, body recovery, cold case clearance rates, what an actual investigation into that ravine would find, that video's up next, and it gets darker than you'd think. Go watch it. I'll see you out there.